I am Ryan Mitchell, a 29-year-old senior software engineer. The scene was perfect: Easter, family, and ham. Then Mom Brenda seized the moment. She slammed her hand down and, in front of all my relatives, shouted, "Ryan, you need to fix this. You're the reason this whole family is falling apart." I, the one who paid every bill and covered Evan's rent, just stared. That public condemnation was the final crack in the dam. I silently decided that my role as the family's bank was permanently over. What did I say next to the whole table, and what happened when I cut off every single dollar of financial support that very hour? When Dad left, I became the reluctant glue. It meant replacing car tires for my sister Chloe and paying every overdue utility bill for my brother Evan, all while juggling my full-time career. My steady tech income was supposed to buy me freedom. Instead, it just bought my mother, Brenda, the financial anchor she needed to avoid responsibility. Did all this sacrifice ever earn me respect, or did it just make me the perfect victim for my mother's blame game? At work, I managed multi-million-dollar projects. At home, I was just the ATM. My mother, Brenda, was the expert manipulator, always comparing my success to Chloe's artistic spirit or Evan's potential. My efforts were never celebrated, they were expected. The worst part was the emotional debt. I was constantly made to feel guilty for being the successful one. It was a vicious trap: pay up, or be blamed for their failure. How much sacrifice is too much, and what was the final, unforgivable lie my mother used to push me past my breaking point? My escape wasn't a girl or a vacation, it was my work. Becoming a senior software engineer wasn't just a title, it was my fortress. While they were consumed by their drama, I was immersed in coding and leading complex projects. That quiet excellence was my silent rebellion. My job taught me real value, the one I earned, not the one they demanded. That independent success was the first step toward realizing I didn't need their approval to breathe. Did my professional success finally win me their respect, or did it just give them a bigger target to blame and tear down? I once told Mom I had secured a major promotion and a huge raise. Her response? "That's nice, Ryan, but Evan just totaled his car, and we need that money for the deductible." My success was instantly converted into a new family emergency. No congratulations, just a new bill to pay. Every sacrifice I made, every sleepless night, every canceled date, was dismissed as my duty. The financial support was never enough to buy emotional recognition. I was the family's hero only in my bank statements. How did my younger siblings react to my constant financial burden? And what was the moment my mother weaponized my own compassion against me? While Evan complained about his part-time hours, I was pulling 60-hour weeks. I missed birthdays, holidays, and countless Friday nights. My goal wasn't just success, it was financial immunity, a fortress of cash that could protect me if the inevitable family disaster struck. The cruel irony was that the harder I worked, the more time Chloe and Evan had for themselves. They lived their lives, funded by my quiet sacrifice. I realized my determination only fueled their dependency. What was the final, stinging insult my mother used to completely undermine my hard work, and how did my siblings contribute to the injustice? I tried to share my successes. "I just closed a huge deal," I'd say. Mom's immediate response was, "Chloe's design client just canceled, and Evan needs tuition money. Your big deal won't matter if your siblings fail." My hard-won achievements were only currency for their needs. Worse, she'd say my engineering job lacked the soul of Chloe's art or the hustle of Evan's schemes. I realized my stability was a flaw, not a strength, in their eyes. They valued drama over discipline. Why was this constant manipulation the final preparation for the explosive confrontation that was about to happen at Easter lunch? I confided in Alex, a senior manager who saw my potential. I laid out the whole family ATM situation. Alex listened, then dropped a truth bomb. "Ryan, you aren't the glue, you're the foundation they drain. You're supporting them, but they're not supporting you. That's not family, that's business." That simple phrase, "that's business," cut through years of guilt. It wasn't my responsibility to fix their choices. My value was mine alone. The decision to walk away suddenly felt logical, not cruel. How did this new perspective give me the courage to make the biggest financial decision of my life, and what was the first boundary I prepared to enforce? With Alex's words ringing in my ears, I stopped working extra hours for their needs and started investing in my own life. I took a certification course I always wanted. I worked on my own side project, a passion app. I was trading family drama for personal growth, and the shift was exhilarating. I was building something real, something they couldn't co-opt or crash. For the first time, I felt a solid foundation underneath me that wasn't made of my mother's demands, but of my own competence. What was the life-changing decision I prepared to announce to my family, and how did I strategically plan to remove the ATM for good? I spent weeks mapping out the final exit. It wasn't emotional, it was a project plan. I detailed the exact moment I would stop covering Evan's inflated rent and Mom's utilities. I confirmed I had zero financial exposure to them. This was about severing the business relationship, meticulously and logically. I consulted a lawyer about my obligations. The advice was clear, my support was voluntary, and I could stop anytime. That legal confirmation was my shield. I prepared a statement, short, factual, and completely devoid of emotion, ready for the inevitable confrontation. Easter lunch was the perfect stage. All the relatives who judged me and enabled my mother would be there. It wasn't just about cutting the money, it was about reclaiming my narrative in front of the audience she used to humiliate me. I anticipated chaos, but I knew my silence would be the ultimate power move. How did my mother deliver the final, public blow, and what was the single, calm sentence I used to dismantle her entire web of control? The moment she yelled, "You're the reason this whole family is falling apart," felt like a physical blow. She went on, tearfully detailing my selfishness, how I put my career before their simple needs like Evan's rent and her mortgage. She played the victim perfectly for the audience of 30 relatives. My disgust wasn't about the volume, it was the content. The reason this was falling apart was because I had recently told her I wouldn't pay off the last of her credit card debt. I was being publicly shamed because I dared to protect my own financial future for once. While she was still sobbing, pointing to the expensive watch I bought myself, another sign of my greed, the cold anger set in. My planned, unemotional script locked into place. I didn't defend myself. I didn't yell. I just stood up, calmly interrupting her Oscar-worthy performance. What was the single powerful statement I made to the entire table, and why was my immediate, quiet exit the most destructive thing I could have done? The room was silent. I didn't raise my voice. I looked directly at my mother, then swept my gaze across the enabling relatives. I said, "You are correct, Mom. I am the reason this family is falling apart. I am removing that reason," I continued, cutting to the cold business, effective immediately. Evan's apartment rent, which is due next week, will not be paid by me. Your utilities, which are due in 2 days, will not be paid by me. My financial support for this house and everyone in it ends now. Mom's face went from theatrical grief to pure, stunned rage. She tried to interrupt, but I cut her off with a look. I had given her decades of my life, I was done giving her my attention. I had asserted absolute, unemotional control. I placed my napkin neatly on the table, a final, small act of defiance. I didn't yell or argue. I simply walked out, leaving the food, the relatives, and the entire toxic dynamic behind me. There were no tears, no explanations, just a swift, devastating exit. What was the immediate, chaotic consequence of my sudden financial withdrawal, and did my little sister Chloe finally find the courage to leave too? I got in my car and immediately activated no contact. My phone became a ticking time bomb of failed attempts. Mom called me 10 times from 3 different numbers. Evan texted, "Where's the rent, dude? We're screwed." The silence on my end was the first punch of my strategic revenge. Evan's landlord had no patience. His eviction notice, funded by my previous support, arrived within 48 hours. He tried to guilt-trip me with pictures of his belongings being packed, but I saw only the consequences of his and Mom's enablement. The ATM was closed, and their transactional lives were collapsing. But then came Chloe's message. Not a plea, but a thank you. She said my courage was her wake-up call. She immediately started looking for roommates and enrolled in a new design course, cutting ties with Mom's drama. My revenge wasn't just punitive, it was unexpectedly freeing for one person I truly cared about. What did Mom do when she realized Chloe was gone and Evan was evicted? And how did the judgmental relatives finally react to my silence? I met Alex a few days later. As I recounted the Easter confrontation, the public shame, my cold response, the immediate cutoff, I expected judgment, or maybe just pity. Instead, Alex simply smiled. He validated the strategy, not the anger. You didn't destroy your family, Ryan, you saved yourself from being destroyed by them. You drew the line, and you didn't flinch. That takes more integrity than paying every single bill they ever sent you. Hearing that from a professional peer was the true emotional payday. For the first time, the freedom felt real, unburdened by guilt. The lack of contact wasn't isolation, it was quiet independence. I realized the family's criticism was just background noise now. I was finally focused on building a legacy of self-respect, not resentment. Did my family ever try one last, desperate attempt to guilt me back into their lives? And what shocking price did my mother pay for her constant manipulation? I moved into a new, spacious apartment, the kind of place I always dreamed of but could never afford while subsidizing my family. Financial freedom felt glorious. I was promoted again, a recognition entirely earned. I had everything I wanted, success, peace, and quiet. But the silence was sometimes deafening. Success is always sweeter when you have someone genuine to celebrate it with. I realized the family I had escaped wasn't just toxic, it was the only concept of family I had ever known. A quiet part of me still waited for a call, not one asking for money, but one offering a simple, "I'm proud of you, son." I had to mourn the family I wished I had, not the one I actually left. I accepted that the validation I sought, the recognition for my sacrifices, would never come from Brenda. That familial approval was a cost I would never pay again, and the emptiness was the final price of my freedom. My future was about creating my own chosen family and building new traditions that valued competence and integrity over dependency and drama. The bitterness was fading, replaced by a quiet, determined peace. Did the family structure completely collapse, forcing my mother to face the reality of her manipulation? And what did my new definition of family look like? The immediate aftermath of my exit was total silence, followed by total panic. Mom tried every number, every email. She didn't call to apologize, she called to restore the ATM. But the machine was permanently out of service. I was watching their world burn, not with joy, but with detached interest. Evan, believing my threat was empty, ignored his rent notice. The eviction was swift. I later heard he was sofa surfing at friends' places, his potential replaced by a desperate reality. His job wasn't enough to cover his luxurious lifestyle, subsidized by me. Chloe's story was the silver lining. She saw Evan's collapse and Mom's histrionics and finally understood the mechanism of manipulation. She messaged me later, "Thanks, Ryan. You gave me the courage to leave, not because you paid, but because you stopped." Mom had built her entire identity around being the stable, long-suffering matriarch. Now, with Evan evicted and Chloe gone, she had to move in with a distant aunt, a source of public shame she couldn't spin. Her facade of a perfect family completely shattered in front of the very relatives she used as an audience. The shocking truth was that their entire structure, financial, social, and emotional, was never built on love or respect. It was built on my paycheck. Once that anchor was cut, the whole ship sank, proving my mentor Alex absolutely right. Even the judgmental relatives started to change their tune. They saw Mom's frantic, manipulative calls for what they were. The silence I maintained was a shield, but also a silent testimony. I didn't have to defend myself, the devastating reality did it for me. The realization was stark. The family was just a business venture led by Brenda, using guilt as capital. The revenge wasn't about hurting them, it was about releasing myself from being the instrument of their financial and emotional stagnation. I was finally free. The final truth was in the silence. After the frantic calls stopped, there was just quiet, the quiet of a broken machine, not the quiet of a resting home. I had won by simply choosing not to play their game anymore. How did I rebuild my life after the chaos, and what final, powerful lesson did I learn about choosing peace over the poison of obligation? The immediate aftermath of my exit was total silence, followed by total panic. Mom tried every number, every email. She didn't call to apologize, she called to restore the ATM. But the machine was permanently out of service. I was watching their world burn, not with joy, but with detached interest. Evan, believing my threat was empty, ignored his rent notice. The eviction was swift. I later heard he was sofa surfing at friends' places, his potential replaced by a desperate reality. His job wasn't enough to cover his luxurious lifestyle, subsidized by me. Chloe's story was the silver lining. She saw Evan's collapse and Mom's histrionics and finally understood the mechanism of manipulation. She messaged me later, "Thanks, Ryan. You gave me the courage to leave, not because you paid, but because you stopped." Mom had built her entire identity around being the stable, long-suffering matriarch. Now, with Evan evicted and Chloe gone, she had to move in with a distant aunt, a source of public shame she couldn't spin. Her facade of a perfect family completely shattered in front of the very relatives she used as an audience. The shocking truth was that their entire structure, financial, social, and emotional, was never built on love or respect. It was built on my paycheck. Once that anchor was cut, the whole ship sank, proving my mentor Alex absolutely right. Even the judgmental relatives started to change their tune. They saw Mom's frantic, manipulative calls for what they were. The silence I maintained was a shield, but also a silent testimony. I didn't have to defend myself, the devastating reality did it for me. The realization was stark. The family was just a business venture led by Brenda, using guilt as capital. The revenge wasn't about hurting them, it was about releasing myself from being the instrument of their financial and emotional stagnation. I was finally free. The final truth was in the silence. After the frantic calls stopped, there was just quiet, the quiet of a broken machine, not the quiet of a resting home. I had won by simply choosing not to play their game anymore. How did I rebuild my life after the chaos, and what final, powerful lesson did I learn about choosing peace over the poison of obligation? 6 months into my silence, the phone rang. It was Aunt Carol, the distant relative Mom was staying with. Carol's voice was shaky. "Ryan, it's serious. Your mother collapsed and she's in the hospital. The doctor needs to speak to the closest next of kin about her prognosis." I couldn't reach Evan. The news hit me like a cold wave. The old guilt, the old programming, screamed, "Go! She's your mother. Fix it." But the new, stronger Ryan stayed seated. I took a slow breath, remembering Alex's words, "I am not the fixer. I am just a relative." I chose compassion over obligation. "Aunt Carol, I will call the hospital for an update, but I will not be going there. I can pay for a consultation if she needs a specialist. But that's the extent of my involvement." I set a firm, financial-only boundary. Evan, who still thought I owed him, was unreachable, probably because he lost his phone after being evicted. The irony wasn't lost on me. The golden child, the one Mom spent decades protecting, was absent, while the selfish son was the one holding the line. I called the doctor. The prognosis wasn't immediately life-threatening, but was caused by chronic stress and neglect of her own health. The doctor confirmed, she needs emotional support and serious lifestyle changes, not surgery. The doctor's words were the final nail in the coffin of my guilt. The issue wasn't money, it was her life choices. I fulfilled my financial boundary, paid the specialist's fee, and then did the hardest thing. I went back to my peaceful life. I chose my future peace over her endless drama. The final truth was this: I could no longer be held hostage by the threat of their collapse. Their crisis was their consequence. I didn't cause it, and I wouldn't fix it. My revenge was complete, not a monetary loss for them, but my ultimate liberation. Did Chloe and I ever meet again to redefine our sibling bond? And what is the single, most valuable piece of advice I can give to anyone still trapped as the family ATM? Chloe reached out 3 months after Mom's health scare. We met at a neutral spot. She didn't ask about money, she just started crying, apologizing for her role in the cycle. I was too scared to face Mom, so I made you my scapegoat too. I always knew you were carrying the load. We shared the hidden truth. Mom had secretly borrowed $20,000 against the house equity, money she claimed was for her small business, but which she later gambled away. The collapse wasn't sudden, it was years in the making, all hidden from me. The conversation wasn't about blame, it was about shared survival. I forgave Chloe, not by forgetting, but by acknowledging her transformation. We agreed on a non-negotiable boundary: no more money talk, ever. Our new bond was built on shared trauma and respect. What was the final, most defining lesson I learned about setting boundaries with toxic family members? And is there any chance I'll ever speak to my mother or brother Evan again? After settling Mom's specialist bill, I blocked Evan, and I explicitly told Aunt Carol that I would only receive updates through Chloe, and only if they were factual, not emotional. This was the ultimate boundary. I controlled the flow of information, effectively becoming the gatekeeper of my own peace. My new family wasn't defined by blood, but by choice. It was Alex, who taught me my value, and Chloe, who demonstrated her ability to grow. We started a new tradition, a low-key dinner every month, where money, guilt, and drama were explicitly banned topics. The most important lesson I learned was about toxic guilt. They had convinced me that my prosperity was their obligation. My revenge wasn't about their suffering, it was about my realization that I owed them nothing more than the basic respect I gave any stranger. The power of simply saying no saved my career, my sanity, and my future. I stopped being Ryan the ATM and became Ryan the CEO of his own life. The freedom was total. What is the single, powerful final thought that kept me from ever looking back? And what message do you, the viewer, take from the story of the family ATM that finally shut down? My quiet exit from the Easter lunch was immediately spun into a public narrative. The enabling relatives, desperate to maintain their own moral superiority, cast me as the villain. I was the selfish son who abandoned his frail mother during her time of need. Aunt Carol, Mom's temporary landlord, was the first to attack directly. She cornered Chloe, telling her, "Your brother is heartless. He lets his own mother suffer while he buys those expensive tech gadgets. That money is tainted now, it's bought with his conscience." I ignored the calls, but their voicemails told the story. Evan's messages shifted from demands to pathetic pleas. Mom's were worse, alternating between tearful pleas for my love and veiled threats about how I would regret this when she was gone. They were right. I was cold. But my coldness was the armor I desperately needed to survive the years of financial and emotional abuse they had inflicted. Their blame was just another manipulative tool, one I was finally immune to. Mom even tried to leverage the house, the very house I secretly paid off the utility debts for, by hinting that if I didn't return, she might have to default. She wanted to hurt me financially, one last time, to regain control. Evan, now working a minimum wage job after his eviction, wrote a scathing post about me on social media, claiming I was hoarding wealth while he was struggling to find purpose. He truly believed my prosperity was his birthright. Chloe was the only one who pushed back, quietly defending my actions to the relatives. Her defense wasn't loud, but it was factual. Ryan stopped paying her bills. He didn't cause her choices. That single ally made all the difference. I saw articles about family financial abuse where the narrative often flips. The victim who stops giving is painted as the abuser. I accepted that society would never fully understand my liberation. Their judgment was just noise, my freedom was the symphony. My response to all the blame was zero. No defense, no explanation, no apology. I had already given them everything I had to give. I had paid the price of admission to my own life. Their blame no longer had a hold. Did I ever achieve true, lasting freedom from the memory of the abuse? And what is the single, defining piece of advice I can offer to anyone still trapped in the family ATM cycle? The chaos couldn't last forever. Aunt Carol, despite calling me heartless, wasn't truly malicious, she was an enabler with a ceiling. She started covering Mom's essential bills and Evan's basic needs, realizing the severity of the situation. Another relative, an older cousin, stepped in to help Evan find a legitimate job and a cheap room, trying to fix the problem. I wasn't surprised. My absence simply created a vacuum that others felt morally compelled to fill. The transactional cycle continued, just with a new wallet. The family quickly spun this. Carol and the cousin became the new heroes, celebrated for their unconditional love, implicitly highlighting my failure to provide it. This was their final attempt to paint the moral high ground. But for me, this was validation. My cutting the anchor forced them to find a new equilibrium, one that didn't depend entirely on my lifelong sacrifice. My coldness created the space for others to step up, proving they could survive without exploiting me. What was the final, non-negotiable principle I set for my own life, and what is the key difference between loving family and enabling toxic behavior? Without the constant drag of family debt, my career soared. My side project, the Passion app, received funding. I was finally building a legacy of competence, not a mountain of debt. My time was dedicated to creation, not crisis management. Chloe and I met regularly. Our relationship was defined by genuine interest in each other's lives, not financial need. She was thriving in her design course, I was launching my app. We were two survivors, supporting each other's growth, free from the shadow of our mother. I started keeping a gratitude journal. It wasn't about the big wins, but the small things, the quiet morning coffee, the laughter with Chloe, the supportive conversation with Alex. These were the true returns on my investment in self-respect. Alex wasn't just a mentor, he was the father figure I never truly had, a source of validation based on merit, not blood. He taught me that love is about elevation, not exploitation. That lesson was the cornerstone of my new life. I accepted that I had mourned the family I wished for and let go of the one that existed. I never spoke to my mother or Evan again. There were no grand reconciliation scenes, just a clear, decisive separation necessary for my survival. The most powerful revenge isn't achieving success to show them, but achieving peace for yourself. The final, non-negotiable principle I set was, my peace is not for sale. If a relationship costs me my peace, it is too expensive. I began investing in local charities, using my wealth to build genuine community, not to buy temporary silence. I was now the provider, but the recipient was a cause, not a debt collector. This was my new legacy. The last image of the old life was a closed bank account. The first image of the new life was a clear path forward, built only by my own hands and my own non-negotiable standards. What is the final, powerful message I have for you about breaking free from toxic family obligations? And what steps can you take today to reclaim your own life and happiness? Time became the ultimate healer. Holidays passed in silence. Christmas was quiet, my birthday, peaceful. There were moments of melancholy, remembering the idea of a loving family, but those shadows faded quickly when compared to the agonizing reality I had left behind. Months later, Evan sent a final, desperate email. No guilt, just a simple request for $500 to cover an emergency bill. I deleted it without a response. It wasn't hatred, it was the final, honest admission that the relationship was dead. Chloe kept me vaguely updated on Mom. She was stable, still living with Aunt Carol, and still attempting to manipulate, but with diminished success. Her tools were dull now, and the audience was exhausted. The crisis faded into a new, sustainable normal. The most defining characteristic of my new life was honesty. Honesty about my limits, about my past trauma, and about the transactional nature of my old family. Honesty was the antidote to years of performance and pretense. I occasionally looked at the old spreadsheets, not to feel pride in my savings, but to see the sheer volume of money I had poured into a broken system. It was a cold, quantitative mirror reflecting decades of emotional debt I carried. Alex reminded me, your biggest win, Ryan, wasn't the app funding or the promotion. It was the moment you stopped measuring your worth by how much you gave, and started measuring it by how much you kept for yourself. I kept Mom and Evan blocked on all platforms. The last tie faded into a distant memory, not an ongoing crisis. I had chosen peace, and the price of that peace was the permanent deletion of my old life. My story is not about hate. It's about self-preservation. It's proof that you can choose honesty and peace over obligation and chaos. It's the story of the family ATM that finally shut down, because the person running the machine chose themselves. What does true, lasting freedom look like? And if you've been the family ATM, are you ready to choose yourself and press the power off button today? The culmination of my focus was the launch of Competence Capital, my app designed to help young professionals manage finances without guilt. It wasn't just a business, it was the opposite of everything my family stood for. The launch event was a huge success. That night, I proposed to my longtime girlfriend, Sarah. I didn't just propose, I told her, I've spent my life paying off debts that weren't mine. Now, I want to build a future with you, free of obligation, built on pure, unadulterated choice. We bought a plot of land and began building our first house. It was a tangible symbol of my freedom. Every beam, every nail, was funded by my efforts alone. This house wasn't a liability for my mother to leverage. It was a sanctuary built on self-sufficiency. I made a silent promise to my future child, you will never be burdened by the guilt of my past. Your inheritance will be love, clarity, and boundaries, not debt and obligation. The cycle of enablement was officially broken. Chloe visited the construction site. She was now financially independent and pursuing her artistic passion. Her success, standing on her own 2 feet, was as gratifying as my own. We exchanged a look that said, we made it. We survived. I spoke to Alex on the phone. I used to think wealth was money. Now I realize wealth is control over your time and peace of mind. That's a legacy that can't be gambled away. Ryan. You built your kingdom on rock, not sand. I wrote a letter to my mother, detailing my gratitude for the life lessons, not the good ones, but the lessons on what not to be. I signed it, but didn't send it. The closure wasn't for her, it was the final, therapeutic act for me. Looking out from the window of my new office, the city lights sparkled, promising endless potential. My revenge was complete, replaced by the greater reward of a self-directed life. My new chapter had begun. If you're the family ATM, remember, you have the power to shut down the machine. Choose your peace. Choose your future. Choose yourself. What is the first step you will take today to close your own family ATM? And how will you define the new, magnificent chapter of your life? If you've listened to my story and seen yourself in the reflection, the family ATM, constantly drained and disrespected, know this, I see you. You are not alone, and your situation is not permanent. The cycle stops when you choose to stop it. The biggest illusion is that boundaries are cruel. They are not. They are acts of self-preservation. Lesson 1. Boundaries are the ultimate form of self-respect. Don't apologize for them, enforce them. It is the single most powerful step you can take today. For years, I was paralyzed by toxic guilt. They weaponized my love against my prosperity. Lesson 2. Distinguish love from financial obligation. Love does not come with a price tag. If they can only love you when you pay, that isn't love, it's a transaction. They took more than money, they took my time, my energy, my peace. Lesson 3. The true cost of enabling is the life you sacrifice. What dreams are you delaying because you're constantly putting out their fires? Reclaim your time. That is your non-renewable asset. Lesson 4. You must mourn the family you wished for. Accept the reality. Lesson 5. Your revenge is your peace, not their downfall. Start today. Block the number. Change the narrative. Look forward. The power is in your hands to build a life free of the shadow. If my story resonated, hit that like button and subscribe. Share your experience in the comments using the hashtag #ShutdownATM. Your story is your power. Thank you for listening to my journey from the family ATM to the CEO of my own life.